Welcome to MenopauseWize, your go-to podcast for all things evidence-based in the menopauseverse. I am Dr. Shwetha Bhatia, an MD gynecologist, a menopause health advocate, a postmenopausal woman, and the founder of MenopauseWize. And I'm so excited to have you join us on this journey. Whether you're a healthcare provider looking to stay on top of the latest evidence-based practices, a woman navigating your own perimenopause or menopause journey, or a partner or family member eager to support a loved one, this series is designed with you in mind. Our mission through MenopauseWize is to close the menopause knowledge gap by bringing you the latest research, expert insights, and practical advice, empowering you to make informed decisions about menopause and perimenopause. Welcome to today's episode of the MenopauseWize podcast, where we will discuss protein and menopause, what every woman needs to know, with Shwetha Bhatia. Shwetha is a board-certified dietitian recognized by the Indian Dietetic Association. With a clinical practice of nearly 2 decades, she manages clinical conditions and athletes with her food-first strategies. Founder of Mind Your Fitness, her 360 degrees approach integrates nutrition, training, and psychology. She is also the force behind Talk to Me, an NGO supporting mental health access for underserved communities. Shwetha brings a voice of clarity, integrity, and science-backed wisdom to the wellness space, especially at a time when menopause and women's health need evidence-led conversations more than ever. Shwetha, we're so glad to have you here on the MenopauseWize podcast. Thank you so much for agreeing to share your insights on protein and menopause with all of us today. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Let's just jump in right away. When we think protein, we think muscle, we think bulk, but could you share some other uses of protein that our body needs it for? So besides muscle, is there any other use of protein in our body?
Right. So protein basically, as the name suggests, right? It's the primary building block of all our cells, and it makes up the bulk of all our tissues and organs. So when we speak of organs, it's just not the muscle mass here. I know that there is always a direct connection when we speak of protein. The first thing that comes to our mind is muscle mass, but actually the primary focus is just not maintaining muscle. It's also your hemoglobin, your enzymes, your hormones, your bone, your immune cells, right? Everything is protein in the body, and also muscle, because it's also one of the organs. And primarily for menopause and perimenopause, or just for anybody after the age of 30, we do know that aging is about slower repair and muscle loss. So then we speak of protein, with the focus of also maintaining muscle. But primarily, even if you are not weight training, you do need to consume protein.
Right. So basically, protein is
everything
sort
in
of
the body.
yes. So yeah, think beyond muscle is lesson number one in protein for everyone. About sources of protein, there are of course a whole load, and if you Google, you'll find vegetarian, vegan, animal, dairy, and it can be confusing about like are they all the same? When I'm choosing a protein, does it matter, and how does it matter?
Right. So at the outset, Dr. Supreet, let me tell you that India's problem is protein deficiency. Although we are Googling and we are reading a lot, but we're not really consuming it. And again, if we are, then we are probably not picking up the right sources as per our requirements. So simply put, protein is a chain of amino acids. It's made up of amino acids. And the body needs 9 essential amino acids daily from the diet because it cannot be made. And as we already saw, that protein is required to repair our body. Right? So we need these amino acids to build and repair on a daily basis. Now, when we look at protein quality, there is a scoring system called as the DIAAS, which is Digestible Indispensable Amino Acid Score. Simply put, what it says is that it evaluates or looks at the quantity and quality of the amino acids in a protein. So if all the essential amino acids are there in that protein in the required amounts, and it can be utilized by the body after digestion, which was not what we factored initially. Initially, we were only looking at the presence of these amino acids. Now we're also looking at whether they are utilized sufficiently, optimally in the body after we consume it. So this is a new scoring system, and as per this scoring system, dairy is on the top. So it is considered the most superior in that system, and followed then by your non-vegetarian sources like your eggs and meat and your fish. Then we look at the plant proteins, which is soy, and below that is pea, and then below that is the other, your lentils and your rice protein.
Wow. Yeah.
So, looking at the Indian scenario, I would say that dairy fits in pretty much for vegetarians and non-vegetarians. Then there are non-vegetarians who don't consume dairy, so they have ample choices if they don't want to consume milk products, because we still have the eggs and the meat and the fish. But the problem arises when somebody has chosen to be vegan, or for whatever reasons, either health or medical reasons, has gone vegan, or ethical reasons. That's when I feel they should really consult a dietitian and look into the quality of the amino acids they're consuming in terms of combinations, and also the micronutrients, if they are being met. And, of all the proteins, I would also look at collagen, although it's not an essential protein in terms of the usage in the body for organ health and metabolic health, but in terms of maintaining the health of our blood vessels, our eyes, our bones, ligaments, joints, muscles, collagen is an important protein. So it doesn't get utilized as a protein in terms of its amino acids, but as an intact protein for repair. That is something I would add up for the aging population as well.
No, I think this is great, but if you can go down a few paths, you've shared so much information in the past 1 to 2 minutes. I feel like, oh my God, I have so many questions already coming up in my mind just from what you have shared. So just quickly, we know that there are, vegetarian, non-veg, and I think I'm glad that you shared that structure, that if you are non-veg, you could still not be having dairy, you could be vegan, you could be vegetarian. So basically you can go down many different paths.
Right.
Through each one of them, it is possible to achieve optimal health, but it is going to be more difficult or requires more assistance the more restricted you get, right? Because soy is let's say above lentils, but it is still not the same as meat. So it's not that you can't be healthy with soy or vegan sources, but that extra effort to make sure that you've got all your amino acids needs to be made. Am I saying it correctly? Okay. And most of us don't realize that if I'm taking, like, the common thing was have rajma chawal, right? That was one of the common things, right? If you take rajma chawal, you get a complete protein because of all your amino acids are covered. And I remember you mentioning when we had a brief chat that kitna rajma, kitna chawal, like how much of rajma and beans and rice should you combine so that you get the optimum protein level. And daily. I guess that daily. Oh my God, yes, daily. So it's pretty complex, and easiest way is, of course, then have your meat and have your dairy.
Right.
But if I still don't want to, what are the challenges I'm going to face? And I should then approach someone who can help me do that.
Yes.
Right?
In that sense, we can also add a few amino acids in isolation through a supplement and then make up the profile in that scenario.
Oh, like single amino acid supplements.
Yes.
Okay, depending on. So do you analyze how, like, basically, for you to analyze it, I must log, right? If I come to you and say, hey, Shwetha, I need my diet to be improved, how do you improve it, right? You do need information and logging. Okay, and then you analyze the amino acid profile and then put it over. And what are you seeing in your day to day? Like, who is more difficult to deal with then? Like, if someone is vegan or vegetarian, are we managing? Let's say I will be the perfect student. I will be the perfect client. I will come to you and say, I will do everything you say.
Right.
Will you be able to tweak it for me? Is the question.
Right. So once we have the person on board and we run our series of questions, which is typically our assessment, our nutritional assessment, and I understand what the key concerns and what the goals are. And then we also have to factor gut disturbances and the other reasons which I exactly mentioned, ethical or medical or any other reason for which they have turned vegan and they're restricting their protein sources, then I will come up with a plan that is sustainable for that person. Of course, I may explain a few concepts and see whether they're convinced and whether they're willing to switch. There have been a lot of times when vegetarians have decided to eat eggs because they were vegetarians and they had given up in the for a brief bit, and then they're willing to restart that. So when I've explained the science, they're okay to start eating at least eggs,
Right.
which they had, decided to give up on. So yeah, I mean, there are many scenarios, and then of course I also have to find a middle path with my client and then say, okay, this is what we should do, and this is the best approach or combination.
Right. So a thing that I have noticed with myself and a lot of other women is the whole fiber protein mismatch, especially if one is meat based. And this conversation I keep having with myself, sometimes even with my children who are adults, but so they're making their own food choices. But the question is, when we base ourselves too much on, if I am looking for vegetarian sources of protein, I usually drag some fiber along. But with animal protein, I may not, because animal dairy products have zero fiber. So how do you approach that? Because the fiber is, of course, so important for metabolic health, so important for all of, yeah. So if you can kind of explain about, the importance of fiber while making sure that you're having protein, especially if you're based on animal products. So, yeah.
So fiber typically wouldn't really be only vegetables, right? They're coming from nuts and seeds, and I'm not saying that we have to go zero on plant. What I'm saying is that we have to create a balance and keep some amount of, so 60 to 70% at least from your animal sources, which could be dairy and eggs and other first class sources. So there are going to be foods with fiber. In my plan, you would never see that just because somebody's eating animal protein, there's a lack of fiber. In fact, their gut actually gets better once they start the plan. So I think it is a combination of the entire plate than just isolating protein and saying that if I add animal protein, I won't get the fiber in. That's all about the way you plan your plate. And we can choose from many sources besides just having vegetables. And maybe we don't have to combine all of it in the same meal. Maybe we can keep the protein as two snacks and then have your vegetables and the other things, legumes, in your main meals. So it's all about planning and how much one can stomach the protein in a meal, right? Because not everybody has the same digestive capacity. Even if I've given you, say, 50 grams of paneer and you're not used to eating that, you might not be able to stomach 50 grams.
Right.
So I think that it is an individualized approach, but as you rightly pointed out, fiber is an integral part of that plate, and it's up to me to ensure that they get their daily requirement of fiber in through any source.
Right. No, I think that's
Nuts, seeds,
yeah,
legumes.
absolutely. Yes. So I think like that was something that yeah, if you think protein, sometimes we kind of miss the fiber, and I just wanted to stress on that and have your views on that. What about excess protein? Is it harmful, or what is excess protein? Like if you say, what is my protein requirement? 53-year-old coming to you saying, hey, what is my protein requirement? I'm postmenopausal. What do you have to say?
So, I've never seen anybody in this age group consuming excess protein, especially in the Indian scenario, to be honest. Never. Never. It is very difficult to eat too much protein because if you look at the three nutrients on your plate, which gives you energy, like carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, of the three, protein is the most satiating. So I'll give you an example. If you take, say, two medium chapatis or rotis and you take 100 grams of chicken, they equal in calories. But if you have to sit down and eat 100 grams of chicken, it really gets very difficult, and you would say, hey, I'm getting full at 50 grams, I'm done. But if you have to eat just two chapatis, you would say, I think I can eat one more after this. So it's all about the gut-brain signaling here in terms of how nutrients affect satiety, right? And protein, because it's very precise in its signaling to the brain versus a carbohydrate, you really can't eat too much unless and until you're consuming scoops and scoops of supplements, which is easy to put down. Then you could probably go into excess. And in terms of harms, as of now, whatever the data says is that there is no harm from consuming excess protein, even if you are above the limit, if you have healthy kidneys and a healthy liver. But what happens with excess protein is that it becomes glucose finally, and it then gets stored as fat because there is no storage of protein as protein in the body once it's utilized for repair. The excess is going to be stored as glycogen or as fat. So the other thing would be gut issues. I think people run into digestive issues, like they might have constipation. That's the most common thing I see when I start adjusting the protein, which is an initial adaptation, and then once the person is used to that much, that gets resolved. So that is something that would come up with a little excess protein. But otherwise, I think it's very difficult to consume excess unless you're taking supplements.
Is there a magic number? Is there a magic number that I must consume? Of course, there will be like a slow, steady increase, but is there an optimal goal that I must achieve?
So the baseline, what we have learned is 0.8 grams per kg ideal body weight at rest, and then you increase it, slowly as per the exercise intensity. So we could even go up to 1.2, 1.5 to 2 grams for athletes and people who exercise intensely. But from my practice, if you'd ask me about my practical experience, I would say I would start off, if a person like you is exercising, I would start at 50 grams per day and then build it up. And in some cases, I've even seen that 30 grams also works well if I've pulled it up from the right sources, which is the first class proteins. Then you really don't need to increase the total protein.
And 30 grams, let's say average weight is between 50 and 60 kilos for an Indian woman. Let's say she's 50 kilos, right? Yeah. And if you're saying that you start off with 30, that means her deficit, she must be coming to you with what, 20?
10 grams sometimes.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess the Indian diet is so heavily focused on carbs, right? Whether you take, and India is so diverse. So you have the North Indian diet, and then you have South Indians. Everyone's got either rice or wheat or. Wow, that is something. Wow, 10 grams, huh?
So 10 grams of good quality protein, which is from the first class sources. So when we speak about carbohydrates, of course, the grains and the pulses and the dals on the Indian plate also bring in the protein. Yeah. But like I said, they also bring in double the amount of carbohydrates. So as a dietitian, and typically women in this age group are never at the ideal body composition or ideal body weight. There's always a weight gain. For example, I'm perimenopausal and I've been on the best plan ever since I've been a dietitian, and I'm looking at weight gain sometimes. There are phases, it goes in phases. So I don't see any woman in this age group who's, managing her weight well, especially if she's not exercising or has not got her diet in check. So definitely then there is a requirement to pull down, not looking at the carb-based sources as your sources of protein anymore. You need to put that down and then adjust the plate and get the first class sources coming.
But having said that, because sometimes we get very protein focused, it's also, as you said, balance the plate. So it's not that leave your dals out. Correct. Or leave your nuts and seeds and don't not eat the carrots because they don't have protein or don't have very little good protein. They've got mainly carbs. So I think the message is balance everything out and get help when you need to. What are you looking at in terms? So women coming to you, they may not come necessarily with, hey, I'm protein deficient, right? They're probably coming to you with certain symptoms and signs, and you are then looking at improving their diet, their nutrition. So what are they coming to you with? Because a lot of women listening right now may not even know that they need this help. They may just basically say, yeah, I think I'm eating okay, but they may be suffering from some of the symptoms of deficiency. So could you share some of those symptoms?
Right. So some of them, typically what I see is hair fall, aches and pains, not being able to recover from exercise if they've just begun an exercise program, immunity dropping, anemia. Maybe not in this age group because, you probably are losing less blood, but anemia is a common sign of protein deficiency. Also not able to get through by, with your daily tasks in the day, you get tired very easily.
Fatigue, yeah.
Fatigue. So these are some common things. And again, at the core, it might not reflect in a blood report, but some of our hormones are made from proteins, the peptide hormones. So when we look at, when we discussed about the role of protein in the body, because it literally repairs everything. Even your hair is protein and your bone is protein. So you might not see the signs like at the surface level, but a lot is happening at the core. Yeah.
And I think that the 0.8 gram per kg body weight is to not be diseased, right?
Correct.
It's not to be in optimum health.
Correct.
So the absence of disease is not equal to being healthy.
I'm glad you raised this point because people tend to confuse health and fitness. Fitness is, you can only be fit if you're healthy. Yeah. And the RDAs are set at a population level which says that 80 to 90% of the population, when they consume so and so, they're not sick. But not being sick doesn't mean you're healthy or your risk is low. Absolutely. For disease. Absolutely. It just means that at the moment you don't have a medical condition.
Yeah. And that whole difference between surviving and thriving.
Exactly.
And it's, I guess menopause is can be quite an eye opener, and it can make you question everything that you've been doing just because your symptoms have become like in your face suddenly. Yeah. So let's talk about muscle now. Now we've looked at the role of protein in other areas, but let's just focus a bit more on muscle and sarcopenia. If you can tell us about sarcopenia, what it means, and why we need muscle for why do we need protein for it?
So sarcopenia in very simple words is muscle loss, especially the one that in this age group we are looking at age-related muscle loss. So when somebody talks about anti-aging, in very simple words, it is preserving muscle and keeping body fat within range. Whenever anybody asks me the definition of anti-aging, this is my standard definition. Maintaining muscle and keeping body fat within range. Because aging is exactly the opposite, losing muscle and gaining body fat. Right? And that brings us to the concept of body composition, because we are such slaves to the scale. We don't know anything besides that number when we stand on it in the morning, and we get obsessed with that number. So if I had to explain body composition in a very simple manner, let's say you're 50 kgs and you're at your ideal body weight as per your height weight chart. But when you do a body composition analysis, more than 30% of that 50 kgs, which is more than 15 kgs, is in body fat. So you have 20 kgs of body fat of that 50 kgs. Typically for the body, you are overweight now because it has excess fat. You are low on muscle. And if you were 60 kgs, you, as per the height weight chart, might be 10 kgs above the normal or the standard. But here, your body fat is only 15 kgs. So the excess weight that you're carrying on that scale now is in lean mass, which is a healthy marker. So I think that we need to shift our focus from the weight part and the number game and focus more on the body composition, which is maintaining good muscle mass, which is the challenge as we age. And where does protein fit in? Obviously, it's no rocket science. It is the building block. So if you want to maintain muscle, you will have to consume protein.
Right.
More than just talking about weight, I think we should look at it from, see, when we maintain our muscle mass, it's also better bone health, it's better metabolic health, and muscle is linked to longevity. Right. So it's more long-term maintaining your health.
Right. I guess that muscle mass is ultimately what is going to prevent us from falling. It is what is going to protect our bone from breaking, and
just reduce medical cost in short.
Yes, and a better quality of life. Yes. Right? To be able to go hiking at the age of 70, or to be able to, like, for me, I keep thinking, I usually give this example at the age of 90 when I am traveling by myself. I do not want anyone to tell me, hey, auntie, I will put your overhead cabin, for you. I do not want that. So that is my goal, that at 90, when I travel alone, this is what I want to do. And I think looking at it backwards, if I'm unable to do it at 53, there's no way I will be able to do it at 90. So I have to start at 50. I started long ago, but basically maintaining that muscle mass in my shoulder to do this. And I think these small goals, maybe sometimes they're jokes in my family. Like, my kids they say, hey, mom, at 100, you're going to be doing this. But I think they're more than jokes. It's goal setting in my head. Of course, I may get knocked off by a car tomorrow, but it's work in progress.
So for me, if one thing that you can take into your old age is your independence, not your wealth. And just why are we going somebody might say you're very ambitious when you speak of hiking. I'm saying that can you get up from the chair without assistance when you're 80? Can you go to the washroom without your kids having to support you? My mother's 83. She does her cross training for an hour. She uses the machines in the gym that we have set up for her in the house. She is conscious about herself, and it is about investing in every decade for the next decade, right? Because we're losing muscle mass, lean mass at the rate of 3 to 5% to 10% based on how well we're looking after it every decade. That's not going to change. I mean, we can't stop it. We can just slow it down. So if I'm looking at myself in the age group of 30 to 40, I'm getting my body prepared for the 40 to 50 decade and the next decade and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
It's all
Absolutely.
about living with dignity. It's not about a joke. It's actually very serious.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. I think just approaching it from younger years, like not waiting till you get old to build that muscle, because it gets harder with each decade.
Better.
Yeah. And it all comes with eating right, and that's so important.
Correct.
Right? What about management of, let's say, particularly for women who are struggling with weight? You spoke about satiety. Any other, let's say it is, we are looking not only at satiety, but any other sort of use of protein in managing weight?
Right. So if you look at the Indian plate, it's very carbohydrate dominant. You know that it's all cereals, grains, pulses, fruit, potatoes. And there's hardly any protein. Like it's either negligible or it's not there. And the other mistake that we make is that we, even if it's there, we start eating the carbs first. And then if there is any hunger left after we're fully satisfied with eating our carbs, then we move to protein. But the point is, as I already mentioned about the gut-brain signaling, that we can't really stop eating carbs. We can only do that once it's way above the requirement. Only very few people can actually regulate that and be consciously stopping that. And, willpower is something that never works when you require it to. So in that case, what happens is there's an excess amount of glucose floating now in your body, which can easily become fat. And the building glucose can't do anything for your muscle, like in terms of building it. Protein can become glucose and also give you the nitrogen for building your tissues. So it can do both the jobs, but carbohydrates can only give you the energy and store the energy. So it can't do the job of protein. So out of the two, you need to prioritize your protein. And if you do that and you reverse the plate or you balance the plate back by cutting down a little bit of your carbohydrates and putting the good quality protein, you will work on the satiety signaling of the brain. So your brain will know when it should stop without you really having to put an effort and exercise your willpower. And plus you're giving the right building blocks for your muscle, which will maintain your body composition, maintain your muscle mass. So the better way of doing it is eating your protein first.
Right.
First keeping it on the plate and then eating it first.
Right. Okay. Yeah, right. Also, mood, fluctuation in glucose levels with a carb heavy plate, that could also impact our choices and our mood overall well-being, right? Just having that sugar going up and down as opposed to steady glucose levels with protein, is that something
Yes.
that?
So
Yeah.
basically, I'll just tell you must have come across this term hangry. I think when you eat good quality protein in every meal, you don't get hungry that often, and because of which, obviously, you're not irritable and your mood is quite stable, because there is no requirement for hunger. Is basically a signal from the brain to the body to say, hey, go eat because you're low on energy. And the surprising thing is that a lot of people who are obese or overweight with the high body fat, which is actually the storage of fuel in the body, it's like saying your petrol tank is full, but you're still hungry. That means the gauge isn't working. The gauge is your brain. And it's saying E when there is a full tank. So that's the mismatch that I'm talking about, the gut and the brain, because the brain is an organ. And just like all the other organs are affected by high body fat, so will the brain be. And it will not process your emotions. It will affect your decision making. And the signaling will be affected as well from the nutrients from the gut to the brain. So all of that gets disturbed. So the first thing that we can do, or the best thing that we can do, is at least get the nutrients which help in the brain to kind of understand that it's enough. With that, then we start bringing the body fat down and we work on being overweight, obese, and I think automatically that changes the brain chemistry, which then reflects in our mood and everything else that it controls.
Right. And ultimately, neurotransmitters in our brain are also dependent
Proteins.
on protein, yes, and amino acids. So, yeah. So, yeah, serotonin comes from tryptophan, right? You have to eat tryptophan in your food for it to, yeah. So, I guess that is important. What about um, what about rest days? This question comes out pretty often. Days I exercise, I need to have protein. Rest days, do I still need to eat protein?
Yes, you do need to eat protein because again, it's not about exercise, it's about maintaining your tissues. And I'll just tell you in short, in a very simple manner, what the pathway protein takes after you eat it. So once you eat protein, it breaks down into its amino acids. And those are the simplest forms the body recognizes once it's digested the protein in the stomach and the small intestine. From here, it comes into the blood. Before it comes into the blood, actually, a large part of that protein is utilized by your gut itself for its own function and the gut microbiome. So the gut bacteria also consume your protein for their own requirement and to make metabolites that regulate the other functions. We already know what the role of the gut microbiome is in the body. So the first step is that it is utilized within the gut, and then it comes out into the blood, and then from the blood it goes to the liver. So the liver is the main guy which checks every organ and says, okay, hey, we need protein here, we need protein there, we need protein here. So let's send some amino acids here, let's send some amino acids there. So it does that job, and then it's making your neurotransmitters, your your albumin, your other proteins which are required, your transport proteins and things like that. And once all of that is done, 10% of that goes to the muscle, even if you have exercised. So yes, besides the priority is to make the other proteins first and then the muscle. That's the reason when we fall sick, the body says, okay, let's shut down muscle protein synthesis. And so you lose muscle because I have to make the other important proteins to sustain work here.
Right.
So the muscle is always the component that gets affected in disease, right? That's catabolism.
So 10% goes to the muscle the days that I exercise,
No,
or just
the days you're not exercising, just at rest.
Yeah.
And then
so 90% goes to that is the point. The 90% goes to everything else. So
correct.
So you still need it for that 90%.
It's basic maintenance. So you have an office, even if you don't do any work, you still have to pay your rent, you have to pay your electricity bill, you have to pay your telephone bill, because that's just the basic cost you're going to incur for having an office, right? Which is your body, which is sustaining life. And of course, then if it's in excess or it's not utilized the way it's supposed to, then it gets stored as glucose and then fat.
Right. And what happens with age? Does the requirement change? Like in my 60s and my 70s, what's going to happen with my protein requirement?
So yes, there is something called as anabolic resistance, which means that as we age, the muscles have a blunted response to any anabolic stimuli like excess protein intake or resistance exercise. So in simple words, that it does not respond the way a younger person's body would with the same environment of exercise and good protein intake. And that is the reason why we lose muscle as we age. So yes, there is a higher requirement. But having said that, from experience, I would say that I don't directly just, if a person above 50 or 60 comes to me for correcting their diet, I wouldn't just bump up the protein like that. First, we take a recall and see how much he's already consuming or she's consuming and is comfortable taking that much. Then we increase it slightly, and I would, rather than increasing the total protein immediately, I would correct the amino acid profile, which is adding good quality protein first. Because I have seen a lot of times that even, like I said, even if I kept the protein at 30 to 40 grams, but I pulled it out from good sources, I don't have to increase the total protein. It's a good job, even at that level. So I think that's a smart way to kind of get that going for older adults.
Fill in the gaps first and then work on quantity. Because as we age, does it get more difficult to digest protein or it doesn't really matter? In your experience, of course,
It is a little more taxing to digest protein. It moves more slowly in the gut. That is also the reason why it signals the brain faster, right? The satiety quotient is very high because it moves slowly from the gut. It takes a longer time to digest protein. In fact, protein digestion pulls out calories, like it burns calories. It's called thermogenesis, right? Effect of food. So yes, but one of the factors that should be considered is if a person is used to eating protein or not initially. So if a person has not been eating any at all, if I just suddenly increase it, I do see like there could be constipation or there could be some bloating or gut issues. So we build it up slowly. So aging, yes, obviously the digestive system is affected slightly. It also depends on the total health of the digestive system, like the gut microbiome, or if they're taking any other medications which is affecting their, mucosal lining. So a lot of things need to be considered in the older population.
Right. And just for an example, if I have a bowl of dal, like let's say, chane ki dal. I'm having a bowl of dal, thick dal, the Punjabi kind, not the thin watery kind. And I'm having a chicken breast. Could you give like a comparison number? What does it mean? I'm just talking about averages. I know it could be, it depends on the weight and all of that, but just as an average.
So a bowl of thick dal is, I would say, around 7 to 10 grams of protein. Thick, and it's around a 200 ml cup, which is a standard bowl in the Indian household in the kitchen.
Right.
And 100 grams of chicken is like a palm-sized fillet, which is 1 inch thick roughly. That would give about 20 to 25 grams of protein.
Right.
Almost double.
Right. So, and the amino acid profiles will be quite different. Right. And what amino acids are we deficient in when we're eating?
Chana would get in a few carbs, but of all the carbohydrates, I would prefer to take carbohydrates from pulses and legumes versus the grains.
Right.
Yeah.
But also to bring in dragon fiber and antioxidants and a whole lot of other good stuff also comes in, which also then comes in with meat. You get other vitamins also get dragged in.
It's more bioavailable in the sense they absorb better.
And typically, what are the amino acids a vegan becomes deficient in?
All the essential ones.
All the essential ones.
Especially meat, because it's one of the most important ones of all, according to me. Of course, the amino acids, which, yeah. So I'm not saying that they're not present, but what I'm trying to say is that they are present, but they're not in the optimal amounts the body needs. And so it's going to wait on its repair. And if you're not putting it in for weeks, and then you also have high stress levels, or you're working out, or you're doing anything else, then it's not working.
What about supplement to supplement? Let's say I choose to take, let's say I'm vegan. I know I'm not meeting my requirements with just food. And I add a vegan supplement. Now, the vegan supplement clearly gives its amino acid profile because they've matched it. They've added the correct proportions of rice, brown rice, pea protein, blah, blah. It's a perfect combination. It's the exact same profile as an animal protein, or let's say a whey protein product. Would it be okay then?
Out of experience, I would say that I haven't really seen something which exactly matches whey, because finally whey is a natural protein in nature. You don't have to add anything to it. But when you make a supplement, again, we have to look at the way, if they followed good manufacturing practices, if they're really sticking to what they claim on the label and things like that. So if you really want to take a good quality plant protein, I would say go ahead with it. Try it for a while, and if it's able to, help you achieve your goals in terms of your fitness and it's keeping you in health, please go ahead and do it, because maybe it's working for you.
Right.
I'm saying that the animal sources are better choices, but if you feel like you're doing good on a plant protein, I'm not saying that you should add it. I may recommend that you add it and see, but if you find no difference and you're doing well on a plant protein, I'm not someone who would say, no, you have to take animal, don't take the plant protein.
Right. No, I guess that's fair, because I guess we do have a large vegetarian, if not vegan, population in India. For a lot of it could be religious or
Yes.
ethical or whatever else. But basically, we do serve a large vegetarian population. Oh,
But having said that, I will just interrupt you here. You are conscious, so you're taking a supplement and you're choosing the right brand and you're looking at the label. But in India, how many women, if you're looking at that population, who are vegetarians, who don't even consume dairy on a regular basis, are going to take a plant protein supplement and then check the label whether it's optimal
I
profile? That's why I
completely
said
agree.
better speak to a dietitian who can, it's a no-brainer, at least get the first set of things done for you.
Yeah.
And then you can always, learn how to read labels and then take it forward
Yeah.
on your own.
No, I can't agree with you more because like I feel like I am pretty anal with what goes into my body. So every label goes through a scanner and all of that, which sweetener, which additive, and all of that. But in general, not everyone is doing it. In fact, very few people are doing it. So to fill in the gaps is not easy. Um,
So one thing that I do, Doc, is that I have a YouTube video on food labels. So I always put that, attach it at the bottom of my diet plans, and I tell my clients that go through this. You need to read this or watch it and understand the basics of how to choose a product. And it's usually related to low carb because 90% of the population is coming to lose body fat. So I have made a video in which I've spoken a little bit about the sweeteners. I haven't really gone into the amino acids and the proteins because it's very straightforward. It's usually the carbs and the fiber and the sweetener, which is a little confusing for people to understand, the net carbs and things like
right.
that. So I think as dietitians, we can start educating our clients and patients about how to read labels and at least give them the resources. If they want to do it or not, it's up to them. But at
Right.
least we have them with the format.
Right. And I think that's more empowering than giving out that diet sheet, right? Because now she's gone home empowered. She can then make her
Correct.
choices. Education is so important when it comes to nutrition because it isn't about a prescription for 7 days. It is lifelong now.
And it's not dependence. I'm not going to be with that person
Right.
forever. So one
Right.
has
No,
to
I
become
think I think
independent at a certain
yeah,
point.
that is really, really powerful. What about distribution of protein? Like, let's say I want to have 50 or 70 grams of protein in the day. How do I have it? Do I cluster it together? Do I divide it? What do you recommend?
So previous data said that 25 to 40 grams of protein in a meal is the cutoff, beyond which there would be no further benefit. And we call that the protein threshold or the muscle full effect, especially in exercising individuals. So as dietitians, then we said, okay, let's distribute it equally across meals and not give too much in one meal. But there was a new study that was done in which they showed that even 100 grams of protein in one meal, in fact, had a better effect, a more 12-hour anabolic response, compared to eating it in small doses. And why that's relevant is because a lot of people are into intermittent fasting these days and don't consume frequent meals. And I'm one of those who eats only 2 meals a day, and I exercise intensely. So for me, there are a lot of meals in which I kind of cluster it all together in one. Like there will be one meal with a lot of protein, and one meal might not have that much protein, and it works well for me. But that study was actually done in young males who exercise resistance training. But I'm also perimenopausal. I'm an Indian woman, so I feel like it's worked for me. It should work. It does work. But it all again depends on your personal preference, your meal sched, whether you can stomach that kind of protein in one meal. So it all depends on
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
But
I
of
think
all, I think the most important thing here is that there should be enough protein in the last meal of the day. That is a given. So you can't compromise there. Across data and studies, it says, having a slow release protein like a casein or a dairy or a first class protein in the night before you sleep is good for
right.
for
So basically, eat a satiating, heavy protein laden dinner so that you are
yes,
full and the body works on it. But
right.
at the same time, like eating a lot of protein, like I think when I started monitoring my protein first thing I realized was, oh my God, I didn't realize how little I was eating.
Yes.
Right. It was like a revelation. I was like, really? And I think I'm a doctor. I know what I'm eating. And I was shocked with my own ignorance. So I think logging is so powerful because it tells you what you're really eating. Otherwise, you think, yeah, I think I'm eating okay. It was today I had little dal, this one I had little something, and I'm okay. So I think like that is just to realize how little you're eating is like a big slap on the face. Like, hey, wake up. Um, but when I try to increase my protein, that common thing is like, okay, I'm eating X, I want to get to Y. Let me quickly jump. And the reason I'm bringing this up is like, if you say 100 grams of protein, I think even like beyond a certain amount, it becomes uncomfortable to have that kind of protein together. So,
Yes.
what is your advice for women who are trying to increase their protein intake? Should and let's say that they're starting small. Let's say they're starting at 20, 30 grams in the day, and they want to reach maybe 50, 60 grams. Uh, Division for this protein, meal wise and sort of duration wise. How would you recommend they increase it?
So you're right about that we can't eat too much in one go. Even I can't, even though I've been eating so much protein for all my life. But when we increase the protein for this particular population, I would look at maybe adding a supplement initially because it's really difficult to eat. And first of all, not all households even have these sources available on a daily basis. Like how many people make paneer every day or have chicken every day? So the easiest thing to do in this case would be to add a supplement because you just have to mix it up into a smoothie and a shake and have it. And you could put that into your breakfast or in the last meal of the day if you can't get your good quality protein in. So I think definitely in the first meal and the last meal.
Mm, mm.
Then
And sorry.
yeah.
And for choosing a supplement, they can go to your YouTube video on labels. I think that'll be helpful. No, because I'm telling you, there'll be a list of questions that come up just from this podcast about how do I choose my supplement. It's such a tough decision. There's so much in the market. So,
And a lot of protein supplements also have carbs in them. Like even athletes are sometimes, they've picked up the wrong ones. And I've told them, hey, listen, did you read the label? Because it's got sugar. It's got so much of carbohydrates and we are going on a low carb diet. So, watch it because it's the same brand and the packaging looked pretty similar to what they were consuming. So they just picked it up without reading the label. And then uh, I always ask them to show me the supplement facts part, right? I always check because I know these things happen and I realized that this was a gainer where they also had carbs in this athlete required to lose body fat. So uh, it is very important to read labels unless you're very sure about the brand.
yeah, and then of course, then if you're going low carb, then artificial sweeteners, and then getting down that rabbit hole of how to kind of weigh or risks and benefits of
Correct.
that sweetener. Yeah. Finally, for women who have now, this is 90% of us don't have any kind of pre-existing illness, or we're okay hopefully by the time we reach perimenopause, but some of us will have problems like kidney diseases, maybe some problem with the liver, or even diabetes or thyroid issues. How do you recommend they proceed with their increase in protein?
So we have to do it very cautiously because let me just break it down into a few commonly seen, cases, medical cases that we have to deal with in this age group. So let's start with the gut. So usually, like I already said, it's a little difficult to digest protein. So we have to be careful about the sources when we are pushing the protein up. Sometimes there could be some allergies and intolerances when people have said that they can't tolerate whey protein and then I would switch to soy or eggs sometimes based on whether they're vegetarian or non-vegetarian. I do a lot of work with them in terms of maintaining a diary to identify your trigger foods because 90% of the times it was not the protein, it was the gluten that was causing the gut issue. And when we took that out and added the whey protein, they were tolerating it well. Necessarily replacing, poor quality protein, putting a poor quality protein and replacing whey when they were tolerating it didn't make sense. Another issue would be constipation. I have to be very careful because, whenever you change your diet, your gut microbiome changes with your diet. And initially, protein is constipating in the sense it pulls in more water out of the system. So we need to have more water. But sometimes it's not water, it's not fiber. It's just your gut microbiome that has changed and that's causing the gut issue. So we have to just kind of give it a little time for the gut to get used to the new environment. Maybe we could add a probiotic. I don't know how many people, nobody knows, and I didn't know till just recently, that your gut microbiome helps you to utilize the protein in your body.
Wow.
So they play a part in the utilization of protein in the body. And they also consume a lot of the protein that we eat. So they are like sitting there, a big army sitting there, and we have to really make sure that they're happy.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we're going to be in trouble. So this is in terms of the gut. Then, of course, if there's long-standing diabetes or hypertension, we have to look out for proteinuria and kidney function, because we just suddenly can't say, okay, you need more protein, so eat more protein. We have to figure that out and then understand what the sources and the amounts would be for this particular person. Then another common thing is high uric acid. So a lot of people would have, hyperuricemia, and their doctors would say, don't eat protein now, shut down all the protein. But you are not eating any protein already. Already not eating protein. So this is not caused by excess protein. It's caused because 80 to 90% of the uric acid is endogenous production, which means that your body is just making more, or it could be because of certain medications, or it could be because of the metabolic syndrome per se, where your body makes uric acid. So if that's happening, then, or you're just a person with a genetic tendency to make uric acid, more uric acid. So if we can, we identify the cause, but if we don't know, then a very clear and simple method would be to eliminate the red meat and the seafood, like the fish, because they are rich in purines. Those are the proteins which are purines. But you have your white meats and your eggs and your dairy products, which are good to go. So I would then balance that out and educate the person that you really don't need to shut down all your protein, and you just have to redo the sources.
Right.
Then I think the last one and the most important one, which everybody would want to know, is about the acid load that comes from eating too much animal protein and all the metabolic effects. And I think that's one of the reasons that alkaline water is becoming so famous and popular. But very simply put, yes, the end product of protein digestion, and especially animal proteins, which are rich in sulfur, is acid. But your body is capable of handling that acid-base balance, right? The reason why the blood is slightly alkaline, the pH is 7.3 to 7.4, is because it has to maintain that alkalinity, and it does regulate. It has a mechanism or its own system that regulates that acid-base balance. But yes, if you are concerned, we can definitely increase the alkali reserve. We don't have to take alkaline water, but we can add calcium, potassium, magnesium rich foods, which can come from some dairy products, from your pulses, legumes, nuts, fiber, and then maintain that reserve. So you really don't have to cut down on eating good quality protein, worrying about that. But yes, in certain cases of chronic kidney disease and recurrent kidney stones, I would then preferably, I would choose plant-based protein.
But for the average woman, does one really need to be concerned about this whole acid base? The body is pretty efficient in taking care of its electrolytes and its acid base balance, right? So yeah, for an average woman, let's not it's probably not, but so customization is key. That's what I'm hearing from you, is that
metabolic acidosis is when the body is not able to regulate its own acid-base balance. That's when we have to take care of things, and then there would be other things that would be added. But those are serious medical conditions.
Yeah.
You and I would be in the ICU if we had metabolic acidosis. We wouldn't be sitting down watching Netflix at home.
Absolutely.
So there's something major to worry about in that sense with animal protein.
That's good to know. And is there anything that we haven't covered and you would like to share with us before you share 3 takeaways, 3 main takeaways for women? What is your message to the women listening today?
Okay. So I think that we spoke a lot about protein, but when we look at our diets, we can't really isolate one nutrient. So it has to be a balance of your protein, fat, and your carbs, also your micronutrients, because finally everything works together. We're talking about maintaining muscle mass. We can't just eat protein and not take our vitamins, because everything else is working together to kind of maintain that. So the 3 takeaways I would say is, of course, don't get professional help in understanding what is the protein requirement for you and your body, and the sources based on your gut and your other conditions, so that it can be customized and one can guide you. and don't be scared of taking whey protein supplements because it's unnatural. It's one of the most natural proteins in nature. In fact, breast milk has more whey protein than cow's milk. That's what we feed our newborns with. It's the most natural source and most bioavailable source. And please add resistance training because that's one of the most neglected things, especially in India. We are just kind of opening up to exercise, and then for us, walking and yoga is enough. It's not enough. You need to engage in some weight bearing exercises, but you might have some musculoskeletal issues because of the age group that you're in. So again, it makes sense to go through a professional if you have any injuries or you're hurting somewhere, and then make sure you don't make things worse for yourself by doing the wrong exercise in the wrong form. So professional guidance, I think, is key when you look at your health, because just like you would go to a doctor if you have a medical condition, the doctor would assess you, then say you need to take so and so medications and so dosage 3 times a day or 4 times a day, and then come back to me after a week. Let's reassess and see whether this drug is working for you. It's exactly the same with your diet and your exercise, your prescriptions. So please take professional help when it's possible.
Absolutely. I think that sometimes we are okay going to a doctor, but we are not okay getting professional advice when it comes to and not only professional, I mean customized, because telling everyone that you eat X amount of protein and X as yes, you can start following like basic things, but I think if one really wants to thrive, you have to plug in the gaps and get that customization. So, and getting that help may actually prevent you from going to the doctor's office. So I think it can be a great investment. Nutrition is, we are what we eat.
That's coming from a doctor.
No, I feel like we missed out. Nobody talks about nutrition during our medical years, during our MD years, and it's such a shame. It is such a shame that doctors eat so badly. Look at the canteens in hospitals. Look at the food in hospitals. Look at what I ate as a resident. Oh my God, when I look back, there were periods of starvation because I was too busy in the labor ward. And then there were periods of high sugar because the only thing in the labor ward available was pedas. That people who had with children left behind. So we just ate pedas and had tea, coffee, and we just sustained ourselves. So it is awful that the guardians of health are not taught about it, are not exposed to it. And when I look at doctors our age and how they are physically, it's sad now. It is sad. And I'm not. It's not a blame game. It's just not incorporated. I feel we could do so much better if nutrition and exercise were incorporated in the medical curriculum. It's a long way to that.
But even when you're saying that you had these unhealthy eating patterns, it was back in the day when you were much younger and your body probably handled
it. Yeah.
Now, as you age, that's not going to work like that anymore.
It doesn't.
More so as you cross the age of 30 and 35, and we're also seeing perimenopause set in much earlier. So you don't want just simple nutrient deficiencies to amplify those effects.
No, absolutely.
Going through a lot of chaos with our hormones. We don't want nutrition to become one of the reasons why it's happening.
No, absolutely. Aging completely changes the way you're dealing with it. Like simple things like sleepless nights then, and now if I don't sleep well for one night, I'm miserable the next day.
Exactly.
So it's definitely different. So thank you so much. I'm sure we can go on chatting for another few hours on many different topics, because my brain's already sprouting with more questions, but I think we'll leave it for another time. But this has been fantastic. I'm sure it's going to benefit everyone who listens to it. At least it'll be a starting point. Sure. It's not customized. It's not. It's not. Let's say it's general advice for everyone. At least someone can get started at home. Yeah.
I'm so glad that the conversations we're having today. I mean, I'm sure a lot of things we've discussed is also simple, but they are not known facts.
Exactly.
So we really need to make more content around these kind of topics which people would relate to in terms of making it simple, but also not having the awareness about.
Right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed having this chat with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks again for tuning in to MenopauseWize. Stay informed, stay empowered, and I'll see you in the next episode as we continue to navigate the menopause journey together. If you're a healthcare provider interested in collaborating with us or have insights to share, we'd love to hear from you. Please email us at info@menopausewize.com. That's wise with a Z. And before we go, a quick medical disclaimer. The information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult your physician or a qualified healthcare provider before making any decisions regarding your health or any medical treatments discussed in this podcast. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, this podcast does not replace professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment. If you have any concerns or symptoms that require medical attention, please seek advice from your healthcare provider.